Yeah, collection. I'm Frank Spaldi. I'm the news director at Gamasutra and video game history nerd.
So Frank, you've become a little notorious recently, as of late.
I suppose.
Would you like to tell us why?
Do I have to?
You do.
So I have this really intensely, potentially valuable thing that I put on eBay just to see what people would offer for it. It's the world's only copy of Final Fantasy II, the original in English, the prototype form. And I put it up on eBay and I listed it for $50,000. Or best offer. Several publications, esteemed ones like The Guardian, covered this and kind of missed the or best offer thing. So if you were hating on some guy who's trying to charge $50,000 for a video game, that's me. I will address your complaints after the panel.
I mean, interest in video gaming prototypes has been kind of gaining steam as of late.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. Prices have been shooting up lately, which is why I thought I would see. Because I've had this thing around for 9 years. I was like, well, what are people going to pay for this now? But yeah, we've seen. Did you guys see the Zelda prototype auction by chance? So someone put up a prototype card. Do you guys know what I mean when I say prototype? So this is.
Let's assume no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, when a game's in development, you don't have these beautiful produced in a warehouse labels that you put on games. When you're making games, you're just burning things onto whatever parts you have lying around and trying to see if they work. And what we call a prototype cartridge is usually a cartridge in a mid-state of development. It might not be done yet. You might play the game. It might be a little broken or buggy. Often we find these because they were sent out to magazine reviewers. I don't know how much you know about the print industry, but there's about 3 months between writing an article and it being in a store and a magazine. So companies would have to send their games to these magazines really early in prototype form. One materialized on eBay that was a prototype of the very first Zelda. It was in this weird yellow cartridge, and it's the only one we know of, for the American version anyway. And someone put it on eBay with an enormously high buy-in now that was more than mine, by the way. And it closed at $55,000. We don't know that it was actually paid for, but the paper trail on eBay says that a prototype, and to be fair, a sealed copy was in the lot too of the production run of Zelda. It's gone for $50,000, so prices have skyrocketed for these things lately, and it's kind of the hot thing we're collecting right now.
Right, right.
The biggest value, aside from sort of first party or really popular titles, is usually unreleased or undone prototypes, which means it's a game that they made, but you can't download the ROM from any sketchy site. It's just only available on that cartridge.
Do you want to show one? Yeah, I have one.
Okay, sure.
Wait, what?
Actually, you can download this from dirty ROM sites.
Yes.
Do we have the camera running? Do we want to switch to that?
What on earth have you brought? Oh, okay. Yeah, we can switch to the webcam. I don't mind getting people looking behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's us. Okay, you're the man. So you guys have probably played Batman on the NES. The same company, Sunsoft, was also doing a Superman game. And that's the only copy we know of, is that one there. It's an interesting little game. Have you ever played it, Chris?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever played Sunman?
I have heard that what they did was they took the Superman character out of it, basically?
Yes, they lost the rights to Superman, so Sunsoft made their own character, Sunman. That game also did not come out.
From the planet Crouton.
But before Sunman, there was Superman, and this is the only copy in the world of it. Interesting game, directed by Kenji Ino, who went on to do the D games.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah. Yeah.
So he did a crappy little Superman game before he did D.
Okay, well here's the thing. I think that's fake. Prove to me that it's real.
I can't. You have to trust me, Chris. We've known each other how many years now?
What would be some indicators that,
okay.
So let's say that these guys, it's one of these people, one of these very handsome, attractive people, finds something in their attic. that resembles a prototype NES game?
Okay,
How would
so
you know
let's put it back on the cover.
that someone did not just make it yesterday and hide it in your attic?
So first of all, it's not a prototype cartridge if it's on what we call production ROMs. You see those black things there? Those are called EPROMs. Those are rewritable. It's just like, you know, a CDRW or something. It's media that you can write over. And that's how they would test these games back in the day. They'd burn on EPROMs like these. They'd play the game, they'd test it, and when they had a new build, they'd re-burn the EPROMs. So that's the first indicator. It's got to be on rewritable EPROMs. The stickers on there are because there's a window on EPROMs that is susceptible to light. If a very bright flash of light were to get under that sticker, you might erase my game and I'd have to murder you. But other than that, I can't, unless anyone has a very, very small screwdriver, we're not going to open this up. But the circuit boards themselves, you can kind of see the green peeking behind the EPROMs. That is a circuit board. You can tell what an authentic prototype circuit board is by the etching on it, which unfortunately you can't see here. But you know, an expert, so to speak, like myself, would be able to tell you. Frank Cifaldi would be able to tell you that yes, that is a genuine Nintendo EPROM dev board. So at least the board's authentic. Prototype's very susceptible to faking, however. I could make that.
Sure.
I could take a prototype of, you know, Tecmo basketball or something, right? That would be not valuable. Burn Superman on EPROMs and be like, it's a Superman prototype.
Right.
So it's a very dangerous area of collecting, and unfortunately it always will be, but kind of makes it exciting.
Yeah. Well, it always comes back to, I mean, I keep saying this, you know, when you're buying, if you're buying something from someone, just start quizzing them on, where did you get this?
Yep.
How do you know that it's real? Like, you know, tell me the chain of ownership here.
And I have a pretty good chain of ownership for this one.
Right, yeah. And if the person, you know, if the person can tell you a good story, basically, and if they're not going, oh, well, it's found it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the easy thing about this one is that there aren't any others. So if it's a copy, what was it copied from?
Okay. So moving right along, this does bring us into an area of discussion that we did want to talk to you guys about. Just, you know, as a PSA, people are faking things, and basically, so I mean, what Retro Game Roadshow, what we've been tracking as we've been doing this panel is, you know, the rise in price of a lot of video game collectibles. You know, I mean, people are paying more money for them, and really they're paying a lot of money for games that are in short supply. And as we kind of talked about the first, you know, when we showed a supply and demand chart, you know, when there's a lack of supply, somebody will attempt to fill that supply. Now, what that means is if a game starts going up in value, and people hear about the fact that a game is going up in value, they might think to themselves, oh, hey, I've got that game. It's in my attic. So then you'll have people kind of going and getting your games out of the attic and putting them onto the market and increasing the amount of supply. But when that doesn't work, there will be people who will try to fake things. So these two pictures that you're staring at right now, the one on the left is it is a photograph of an authentic copy of Stadium Events, which is the rarest commercial retail release game for the US Nintendo Entertainment System.
And the best.
Solid, absolutely solid. You've probably played the actual game. It's World Class Track Meet, which is the game that came with the Power Pad. And so basically, when Nintendo licensed Stadium Events from Bandai, they renamed it. They took Stadium Events off the market. It was only ever on the market for a limited period of time, hence the rarity of it. And so the item on the right was a counterfeit copy of Stadium Events that was sold on eBay a couple of years ago to some dumb jackass. Me. What the guy used in his auction was the picture on the left. And so I knew what a Stadium Event should look like, and I was able to look at that picture and ascertain the things that I kind of noted here, which is that's what the label was supposed to look like. The Nintendo seal of quality was not. It's round and transparent. It's not oval and white, which was the later version. And there were other kind of differences about basically like the gloss of the label. So basically, what he sent me was the fake. And I actually put this image together originally to send to eBay to show them when I was filing my complaint, and I did get a swift refund, even though the guy went completely, and he sent eBay all these crazy threatening messages and really helped his own case. It turns out he was nuts.
Did you get to keep it?
Sorry?
Did you get to keep the fake?
No, I didn't. Because part of it was, actually, and eBay is really good about this, what they say is, we're going to give you a tracking label, put the item in there, and send it back. And as soon as the delivery confirmation on that tracking label shows the item has been delivered, you will get your money back. So it's it's out of the guy's hands. Like, he's not refunding money anymore. It's like eBay processing all of that. But yeah, so I mean, stadium events, this cartridge is worth somewhere between, depending on condition, $2,000 and $3,000. And so obviously with that kind of money, being talked about, people will think to themselves, I can fake one of these. So really be careful.
They don't even have to be that expensive, though.
Sorry?
They don't even have to be that expensive. If you look on eBay right now, there's probably a fake Earthbound. There's been a lot of fake Earthbounds lately.
Has there been a lot of fake Earthbounds lately?
Have.
Oh, get out. Really?
Yeah, like they've gone that far, and now people are doing fake boxes for rare games that are hard to track down the box for.
Right.
Yeah, those are even harder to tell because like printing a box is a lot easier than printing a glossy label.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, as I've kind of explained to a lot of people, like I collect video games, and eventually I realized I wasn't really collecting video games anymore. I was just collecting various pieces of paper. Like the video game cartridges themselves, the actual video game, are not that valuable in most cases. And in most cases, what's actually really driving the price up on a lot of things right now is the box and manual, and sometimes it's the condition of the box and manual. I mean, a few dings here and there can do like hundreds of dollars worth of damage. Something like last at PAX East, we showed Donkey Kong Jr. Matt for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and that's a game where the cartridge will cost you $40, which is kind of insane already. But then the manual, is getting on to the point where it's like, 20, 30, 40 bucks. And the box could be worth $1,000 if it's in like beautiful mint condition. And yeah, so I mean, it's kind of nuts. And so it's kind of important to watch out now for that too. And so as you're right, you can fake a box real easily. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have a.
Well, luckily there are communities. I mean, there are a lot of good game communities. There's classic game collector communities. There's digital press. There's Nintendo Age, and for the most part, they band together and will micro-analyze anything on eBay.
Right.
You'll see a long discussion thread anytime something rare comes up.
Yeah. Now we did come up with a better way of identifying a real stadium event.
Yeah, sure. It's a box stadium event.
So if you have a stadium event, we can compare it to this one.
Did anyone bring one?
Which is anybody bring a stadium event and put them next to each other?
We always ask.
Yeah, that never happens. Yeah, just in terms of value, box stadium events, you're probably looking 12,000, 13,000.
Jesus.
So, yeah, it's a very rare box. There's not very many of them out there.
You actually traded for that, right?
I did. I traded a lot of things. It was a Saturn collection, cash, a lot of stuff. But this was the last box that I needed. I had everything else except for the stadium events box.
Yeah, but you traded some of the other boxes that.
Yes, I know. That's true.
It's like a gift of the Magi.
Yeah. It's never gonna happen.
I mean, we should say that the reason this game goes for so much money is because a lot of people try to get every NES game, and this is invariably the last one.
Yeah.
And you get, Steve here is a prime example. You get a little crazy. There's just one
Well,
left.
not crazy.
There's only one left. I have to fill in that
Yes.
slot.
Otherwise, there's a gap, and you just can't have that.
Well, that's when you start hearing about like, oh, why is this game like so rare? Why is this game so expensive? And typically, it's because people are trying to complete a set of games. They want every game for such and such platform, and because this one particular game, which is manufactured in such low quantities, it's the last one, and everybody needs it.
I've never seen the box.
Wow, there you go.
There you go.
We'll pop it in and play later. Yeah. So, horrible. Yeah, so moving right along, you mentioned also that people are faking boxes. So, I mean, we want to show you a couple of things. So here's Final Fight Guide. This is a very difficult to find game for the Super Nintendo. It's Final Fight, but they swapped out the Cody character for Guy, which was the character that was eliminated from the original version. They sold it in Japan, and then they actually had it just at Blockbuster video stores here. And then apparently, the more common box for this is this orange box that says Blockbuster Video on it. But then there's this box, and people have found this game in this sort of variant box, which just has the logo on it, apparently. Yeah. But that's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at, these are fakes. I mean, and the guy who sells these for 20 pounds each says it in the auction description, you know, to sort of indemnify himself. It's like, oh, these are reproductions. But the issue with this, and the reason that this is actually very bad behavior, is because you can't tell. There's nothing on the box or the manual that he's making that says this is a reproduction. And so he might not be defrauding anyone when he sells it to them, but what then happens when that person sells it to someone else, and so on and so forth, and eventually people forget that they're reproductions, you know? And so actually there's even, I mean, we've seen auctions come up where somebody is selling like Mega Man X3, which like in the box, you know, really nice condition for Super Nintendo is multiple hundreds of dollars, and they're selling the real game plus one of these fake boxes. And it's just this very kind of subtle thing in the description. It's just like game plus custom box and manual. Yeah, so watch yourselves, basically, is all I'm saying. Yes, watch out for Mega Man on SNES.
Yes,
it says
Mega
down
Man,
there.
yeah.
And I think that's all for our presentation. So thank you for listening to that.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So I will level with you people because I feel like we're all good friends. We've done this in the past. It's always been after the show is closed, and we've actually, or after the show floor of PAX is closed, and we'd always had like tons and tons of people come in, way more people. We have 5 people, so we're going to bring them all up here and talk about the things that they have. They brought some pretty cool stuff in, so it's going to be fun. But what we're also going to do is, if you have any questions for our panel about collecting or whatever, we're going to do some Q&A basically at the end of the panel with the time that we have remaining. So we hope you entertain. Let's have Alex F. Alex F. Come on down. There he is.
Alex, come take a seat there.
First one, chair of honor.
Okay.
Right next to the chair of shame.
Yeah, that would be
Hi, Alex.
Met you last year here.
Did we?
Yes.
I'm a terrible person.
So Alex, tell us what you
last year.
Oh, yes, of course. That thing was awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
You don't have to lean in too much, because
Yeah.
that'll pick you up. Just tell us what you got there.
I have a Final Fantasy I Wonderswan color camera. Yeah, over here.
So you like portable things?
Yes.
Is kind of what I'm getting.
I collect portables. Yes.
Yeah. So does everyone know what a Wonderswan is?
No.
Okay.
It's the best kind of swan.
Yes. So actually, the Wonderswan was designed by Gunpei Yokoi, right? Who had designed the there we go.
Yeah, right.
Who designed the original Game Boy, and after the Virtual Boy failed, he went on to do independent consulting and worked and created this handheld. There's actually 2 types of Wonderswans. There's the Wonderswan like black and white, and there's also the Wonderswan color.
And there's a Swan Crystal.
And
The Swan
there's-
Crystal, right,
yeah.
which had a really nice
Yes, I only play
much
games
better
on that.
screen.
I can't stand the ghosting screens anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
spoiled now.
Yes.
Yeah, it used pretty cheap. The
In
color
the grand
screen.
tradition of Game Boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Green and black. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let the Final Fantasy guys.
Yeah, so I actually bought this myself when I was in Japan. I was living in Japan when this came out, and so basically, so Gunpei Yokoi, the guy who designed like the Game Boy and the Virtual Boy, was kind of like Nintendo, and had worked with them on this, but also the Wonderswan come out when Square and Nintendo were still very much on the outs, and Nintendo was not allowed. Square wanted to make Game Boy Advance games, but Nintendo was actually not allowing them to do so. And so Square was like, okay, well, they kind of went whole hog. They were one of the only publishers, besides Bandai, who's made the thing, that really went nuts and made a bunch of Wonderswan games. And so this, of course, was a huge partnership for Bandai. So they released when the Wonderswan color came out, they released it in this very handsome package with, this was the first, if you played any of the remakes of Final Fantasy, this was the first one. This was, if you played the one on the PS1, basically, of Final Fantasy 1, the graphics and everything were originally redrawn for this version. So it was actually really cool, and they realized that they were just going to sell this system and this game and nothing else. And it was a good remake too. It was a lot faster. You could hold the button down and zip through battles. So it was actually really fun. And so yeah, they built this. This very nice looking package here. with the game. And so the actual Wonderswan color itself has the cool little Final Fantasy. It has the Final Fantasy 1 dude from the logo kind of in silhouette above the screen.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
And so it's a cool piece. They did one for Final Fantasy 2 as well, which again I stupidly, purchased
that
so
too.
both.
It's just Final Fantasy on it.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, they went nuts. They did Romancing Saga, I think, for the Wonderswan. They did a remake of the original Saga. They did Final Fantasy 4 later on, and there were a couple other games that they did. They did a lot. They were going to famously they were going to do Final Fantasy 3, and it never happened. And they also were going to do Secret of Mana, and they showed I think screenshots of it, but that never actually transpired because what ended up happening was eventually they groveled at Nintendo's feet enough. They let them make Game Boy Advance games again. So yeah, it's pretty cool. As far as a guess on the value at this point, I thought that this thing was so neat that it was going to go up in value, really cool for Final Fantasy collectors. As it turns out, not so much. It's kind of hovered around the $100 mark, which is about what it cost when it came out.
Yeah,
I would guess. Sorry.
I paid like 60 plus shipping from Japan, so
yeah,
that was a while ago though. So.
I think that value, if it's that low, probably has, and I'm not willing to say this, I haven't looked it up myself, but it probably has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of people in the United States have no idea what a Wonderswan is. So just because it's a thing that says Final Fantasy doesn't make it a valuable collectible here, which is kind of a shame in a way. People are. I found the collectors are weirdly ethnocentric in their video games.
Yeah.
I see there's a hand over there. I'll call you in a sec. But I've dealt with prototypes like the one I just showed for quite a while, and I'll dig up a really cool Famicom prototype. Or no, here's a better example. I have this Super Famicom prototype of Rockman 7. It's on this huge, weird board, and it's like really early and different from the final game. And I also have a Mega Man 7 prototype, the American version, completely final, same game, board isn't even as cool. I've gotten tons of offers on the North American one, but like 0 offers on the Japanese one. So I think there's a weird ethnocentricity to video game collecting. That was a strange tangent to go down.
And kind of,
no, I think that was good.
Yeah, I mean, along the system variant collecting, like one of my online handles is System Freak because I tried to get every single version, and so I had like 14 Dreamcasts at one point because they all had different logos on them. Like very few of them rose in value, and in fact most of them kind of plateaued just because like nobody's as crazy as I am, but they have to produce a certain number of them to make it economically viable. And so when you think, wow, limited edition Halo, whatever, well, they probably made a ton of them. So usually those don't rise in value. It's things that are custom painted, or there's actual serials where you're in like the less than 400, like less than 1,000 area.
And even if they are actually pretty limited, most people who buy them hold on to them as collectibles.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's only like a very small group of us. So.
Yeah. So we have a hand raised comment or question.
So there's a microphone right there. So in fact, I mean, during this, if anybody has any questions, commentary on the things that are up here, like go stand, hover in front of the microphone there, and we'll take your questions.
So one quick question.
Oh,
does it work? Okay. Thank you, voice of God. Yes. Bright lights.
So one quick question about the Wonderswan. Am I going crazy, or did it show up in like GameStops for about 6 weeks, maybe? I know the Neo Geo Pocket did make it over to these shores. I swear I remember seeing some Wonderswans behind the counter at like a GameStop level game store.
Are you crazy, or was it at GameStop? It might have. I know that I don't know about this specifically, but in that era, GameStop was doing some importing.
Yeah.
They had import Saturn games there, and I've
definitely Shenmue 2 there actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's entirely possible. It might, yeah.
But
it wasn't a formal US.
But Neo Geo Pocket Color, they definitely had a bunch of those, because that actually did come out in America.
I mean, do you remember it being kind of behind the shelf, like on a metal tab?
Something along those lines.
Yeah, I remember them repackaging after it was dead, the Neo Geo Pocket Color in these like plastic hang tags.
Yeah.
So you saw that also, so it's not what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Well, there goes my theory.
All right. Well, Alex, thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming.
Alex.
But I'm going to have Steve S. up here. Is that you? Okay. Why not?
Steve has something cool.
I like cool things.
Yes.
Come on up, have a seat. What have you brought us? Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
so
Hi, Steve.
Tell us about how you doing, Steve?
Pretty good, thank you.
So, yeah. So, what is this and how did you get it?
So I was not certain what this was until about 15 minutes ago, but we both basically confirmed. This is a prototype board for Marble Madness 2, a prototype arcade board.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Atari did create a sequel to Marble Madness called Marble Man, Marble Madness 2. It's never been released, and it's also undumped, which means you can't load it into MAME or anything like that.
Let's clarify.
Yeah.
It's dumped.
It is dumped, but it's not distributed.
So it's safe somewhere.
Yeah, there is an archive somewhere, but that person who owns the board obviously has something very valuable.
As we kind of touched on, when you dump a prototype, when you get the information off of it and put it on the internet for everyone to have, the value of that prototype goes down significantly.
I don't know anymore.
Oh, okay.
That Zelda thing that sold, I dumped that darn thing.
Right.
Years ago.
Right.
So who
Yeah.
knows?
So yeah, that's it.
So this board is actually really similar. There's 3 unreleased games from Atari that all use this type of board. There's Dr. Sparks' Lab, Arcade Classics, and Marble Man. So the biggest issue with this board is that a lot of the ROMs are missing. So there's nothing we can actually dump off the board. But the board itself, like once those ROMs come out, you could theoretically put together a Marble Man. So
That was the other thing I was wondering. It is actually possible if I can find the ROM images for this to where my own EEPROMs. It looks like that's all that's missing on the board.
yeah, it does look like that's all that's missing. And so I actually, we saw this earlier, and I talked to the guy who owns the Marble Man board, and said, "Does this look like yours?" And he basically said, "Yes, it does. It's actually, it's really similar. That there's certain things that we can take a look at." Oh, let's see my password. That's great.
Do you guys like Marble Madness?
Nobody looks at the screen.
Yeah.
So what they did with this sequel is they added adorable eyeballs to the marble and made it very unappealing.
It's actually not a very good game. I mean, it's very clear that
No, and there's a version of it that always shows up. There's a show called California Extreme, which is this arcade and pinball collectors bring all their rare and awesome machines all to one like hotel. And somebody brings Marble Man every year, but the cabinet that he has it in has a joystick on it. And if you ever play Marble Madness, you know that's completely impossible to play with a joystick, and so it's like not nearly as fun as it should be.
Yeah, and it plays really, really terribly.
Yeah.
I think I hate this.
it's rare, but you know.
But I haven't played it the way it's meant to.
So Steve, how do you? Okay, so you looked at this 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
How did you determine that it's? I mean, besides talking to Scott,
Right.
How did you figure on calling him in the first place?
Well, so how did I figure out calling? Well, it's
Yeah.
like phoning the expert, right?
Yeah.
I basically talked to the people who I know have the actual board set and needed to do a comparison.
Yeah, but
how did we determine this was even an Atari game?
So the actual board itself is very clearly an Atari board.
Okay. Obviously.
Sure.
Yeah, it's actually labeled Atari. So, you know,
Where does it say Atari? Let's see it.
Huh?
I want to see the label. It says Atari. This is really important to me. It could be a fake.
Somewhere on the edge, we've got a.
It's in a gold print that will never show up on the camera.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
let's just
yeah.
pretend that.
Yeah. So it does say Atari, and I have other boards that are based off this one, like Rampart and everything, that looks very similar, except for this daughter board on top. And so it's one of the weird things when you're getting into collecting like arcade stuff. You're dealing with a pretty limited audience, and especially with unreleased arcade, you start getting into the really crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is on the Gal and PAL chips, you actually can see it's written in pen. So this is usually
What's written in pen?
well, like the actual the serial numbers and
Okay.
are basically what the checksum is written in pen. So
So it's not a production board.
no, it's definitely not. I mean, it was part of a production board, but then they started populating it with custom chips to get.
So what makes this one specifically Marble Madness 2? Is there part of the game on here?
Well, so that's the thing. You can't be absolutely sure.
So this could be Arcade Classics.
Or Arcade Classics or Dr. Sparks,
Okay.
but both of those are also also unreleased.
Sure.
So the other thing is these boards are so similar that if I wanted, if for instance the ROMs got out from Marble Madness, and even if it's a Dr. Sparks board, you could modify this board and then put Marble Madness on it, Marble Madness 2 on it. So they're so similar that that you can do that modification. So, like, you know, talking about value, this is one of those things where,
Yeah.
you know, if you had if it was fully populated Marble Madness 2, I mean, I'd probably put the board value at somewhere in like the $15,000 range, just because the last machine sold for way more than that. But since it's unpopulated, it's more of the potential of the board rather than sort of inherent value.
It's basically spare parts for whoever owns the game already.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah, the one guy's like, well, I already own this, but, and so it's like kind of having like the gear shift for like some super rare car or something. It's like, well, this is only valuable with a person trying to restore. I mean, personally, like just because of the potential, like I'd probably put down 500 just to have the board.
And just in case the ROMs come out.
Yeah, just in case the ROMs come out, and you know, if you're interested in selling, you know.
I may just receive.
All right, great.
I may try and collect the ROMs too. So.
Yeah, well, so with the ROMs for it, it's basically in the hands of one guy, right? And so whenever it leaks out of there, I think that's going to be where it goes.
That makes some sense.
Yep.
And I think, for what it's worth, incidentally, I think the ROMs on this were actually scavenged for other games, because I found this when I was working for the arcade side when they were Time Warner.
Okay.
It was found in a warehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think they actually probably just scavenged the ROMs off of this prototype for something else.
Yeah. So that's a shame. Basically, like, yeah, we need some chips. Well, there's that.
Well, hang on. I want to hear your story now.
Yes.
So you're working at Time Warner.
I was working at Time Warner.
What else do you have?
Time Warner, by the way, Time Warner owned Atari for quite a while. They sold it, what, in the 90s, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they bought it in the very early 80s. I mean, it was Time Warner that really sort of championed the Atari 2600 and led it to the success that it was and sort of created the first video game industry in a way. But you were working there when?
I was working there about 1992, 1993.
Mm-hmm. So there was still an Atari games division.
It was still an arcade division. They were part of Time Warner. This was around the time frame that they were releasing Primal Rage and the first Rush game.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened to be a case of, hey, we've got this leftover crap, let's put it on a break table. This happens, as far as I can tell, at pretty much any video game company.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, the let's put this crap on the break table happened to be an unreleased board.
Yeah.
So did you grab other stuff?
Very little other stuff. I think I wound up actually with the Centipede PCB, and that was the main other thing.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks. Very cool.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it in.
That was especially cool to see because it's one of those things that you just assume, like, well, no more could possibly be out there.
Yeah, and then just one shows up.
Yeah.
And that's the only other scenario where one could show up.
Right,
Like,
right.
I worked there and took one.
Just to give you a sense of how rare that is, there are actually only 2 known Marble Madness 2 board sets that are complete.
Yep.
And there's maybe a couple that are parts like that, so it's extremely rare. Right?
So how about Rob S? And they're sitting right there. Come on up.
All right.
Oh my god.
What happened?
Got a recipe.
Mr.
Recipes?
Keep the CDs. We're just going to do
Have a
CDs.
seat.
Okay.
So which recipe and location is that bag?
San Francisco.
Okay.
So I have bits of Odyssey.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so once again, does everyone know what an Odyssey is?
So the Odyssey, I just wrote a little thing on it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The Odyssey is the very first video game console. This was distributed by Magnavox almost exactly 40 years ago. Home video games are 40 years old as of about now. We don't have the exact date, but about now. And this was based on technology by Ralph Baer, patented technology by him. He's kind of considered the father of home video games. He developed this concept at a defense subcontractor, like in secrecy. It's an interesting story. He has a book out by Rolenta Press. It's called Video Games in the Beginning. I urge you all to read it. Now, what we have here
Is
are
the-
2. Okay, so when you bought the Odyssey, I wish we could bring up photos or something.
Yeah.
But you got the main console, and it came with these two wacky controllers because they didn't really know what controllers looked like yet because they didn't exist yet. And it came with a bunch of here you got these overlays, right?
Yeah.
The Odyssey couldn't really display graphics. So you had to put these things on top of your TV.
There's actually two sizes for the two different sizes of TV.
Now, Ralph Baer did not actually like all of this.
No.
Like,
Ralph Baer was like, there's a tennis game and it's fun and that's what they're gonna
he
watch.
actually, Brad, he had kind of figured it out. Like, it was like, look, you know, you play tennis or you there's a dot on the screen and you shoot it. Like, this is fun enough. Let's sell this thing for $20. People will really like it. So what Magnavox did was they just over-engineered the hell out of it, and they had all these like cartridges for like extra games, but they weren't really extra games, and then they packaged these overlays in with it because they were like, oh, black and white, you know, isn't going to look good on the TV screens. But because people had different sized televisions at the time, they actually packaged 2 overlays with each for each game.
And not only were there
Steve
overlays.
has this, sorry?
Not only were there overlays.
Oh,
this
yeah.
box of fun.
Yeah.
You'd open it up, there'd be overlays, there were poker chips, there were score pads, there was like a cardboard football.
There were decks of cards
yeah.
that you'd use for these games. And
Because the game
every single game was about like manipulating 1 or 2 dots on your TV screen. And man, they just came up with so many different ways to get gameplay out of like manipulating 1 or 2 dots.
Yeah, I mean, one game was like, you put a map of the US on the TV,
Yeah.
and then like, someone moves the dot behind a country, and then you have to guess, a state,
Kind of state.
and then you have to like name the capital of it.
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
That was
Yeah, so
the game.
And the game doesn't keep track of any of this.
there's
Dollar
no
score.
Because all you can do is just move a thing around. If you want to show a cartridge again really quick.
Yeah.
These aren't cartridges as we know them. There is no memory on here. These are just pins.
Yep.
Everything that the Odyssey can do is built into the Odyssey, and all these pins are doing is telling it what function to kick into. So this one, I mean, is there a number on that?
So these are 9 and 10.
So these are the ones that didn't come with it, I think.
No, so these came with a light gun, actually, a shooting gallery. And so, in fact, I can verify that with the instructions. It basically came in this really long box and this kind of fake plastic light gun. And so you could shoot the dinosaurs that I was showing earlier.
And all the gun looked for was a bright light.
Yes.
So you could point it at a lamp and it would register.
Yeah.
Video games used to be about the honor system.
Yes. What's the capital?
Yeah, what's the capital of Colorado?
Was it 3 games that came with the light gun?
It was the 2 cartridges. 9,
2 cartridges.
Cartridges 9 and 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think cartridges, I didn't say cartridges. Cartridges 1 through 8 came with the Odyssey itself, and then 9 and 10 came with the gun.
Right.
And then there were actually more add-on games, essentially, that were like, but again, like the actual, what those games were doing, it was more about you were purchasing overlays and cards and whatever, you know, to go with the system. Because again, there's no computer code in the Odyssey.
No.
It's just all.
The Odyssey can display objects and have you move them around.
Yeah.
That's all it can do.
Yeah.
And the objects, by object, I mean square or rectangle.
The important question here is, Rob S., if that is your real name, where's the gun?
Well, it's a fairly realistic looking rifle, actually. It's probably not 1-to-1, but you know, from a distance, you're like, hey, that guy's crazy, duck. So it has a pump action. It makes a fairly loud click when you pull the trigger.
And they packaged real bullets with it.
Yeah.
Long story short, Chris, it's not something you really want to bring on a plane.
So you do have it.
You have the gun.
I do have the gun.
And you have the box.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
What's the shape of the
Well,
box?
I'll tell you.
The box is like this long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the condition of what you have here is you've got the 2 cartridges, the instructions, and you've got both sets of overlays. And assuming that you had this stuff all together, you'd basically be selling it to somebody who already collects the Odyssey and just needs these extra parts, essentially, which is,
There's like
quite
three-
frankly, it's
three
not a
guys.
lot.
3 guys.
Yeah, 4 guys maybe.
Right. I think so this is, okay, let me tell you guys a story. I was reading the Overstreet comic book price guide recently. It was the latest edition of this thing. I'm reading all the essays.
They still publish that?
Fascinating. Sorry?
They still publish that.
They do.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's all these essays in the front kind of telling you about like the state of the market. I found something really interesting. It was very related, I think, to video games. And they were talking about how golden age collectors, you know, these guys who have the comics from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, they're finding that the value of their collections are actually going down. Like this, okay, if you've got Action Comics #1, whatever, you know, or Detective Comics, you know, with Batman, those are maintaining their value and going higher. But it's all the other superheroes that were like only Golden Age that never really made it out of there, and people won't really remember. The Golden Age guys, they love that stuff, and they've got them all.
And they're dead now.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually the truth.
Yeah.
Like the Golden Age collectors that were into that stuff, they're dying now, and there's no one left who wants their stuff.
Nobody is coming in to buy that stuff at the price that they were paying for it. And that actually happened to Atari collecting. Atari was going nuts for a little while around, the 30th anniversary of the 2600. And actually a lot of the Atari prices are just on their way down right now because the guys who cared about Atari, because they grew up with it, they have their collections, they bought their games, and nobody else is coming in to buy it.
Basically, it's very, a lot of the classic gaming collecting happens when people hit a certain age and just like get this click of nostalgia and just have to have the stuff that they, you know, grew up with and that they didn't have when they grew up.
Right. So you're seeing that with the Super Nintendo now.
Yeah, Super Nintendo's on the way, but like the Atari thing happened and is like done now. It's very unlikely that anyone who was playing Atari games at that time, you know, is I mean, they're what, in their like 50s now, right?
Right.
40s, 50s. I mean, they kind of passed.
They're super old.
God, they're just so old. No, you're right, 40, because I had an Atari. What am I saying? But I mean, point being, we've kind of gotten past that sweet spot of like, you know, 25 to 35, where people sort of start doing that and start collecting because they're adults and they have expendable income and blah blah blah.
Yep.
So we're like, the world is no longer creating new Atari collectors.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll tell you that the Odyssey, I mean, it's not worth what it was, basically.
Yeah.
Odyssey 1 stuff, I mean...
There were never Odyssey
a few years
collectors.
ago.
There were never, like, Odyssey nostalgia.
No, there were people who were collecting, like, really Golden Age kind of stuff who, like, really wanted an Odyssey because it was the first thing, and now it's kind of falling out of favor a little bit. But I would say the whole shooting gallery box, you know, right now, the complete set, and it's good, you know, to be able to kind of see this stuff and see it's in really good shape. You know, probably about $100 or so, you know, for that whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more depending on, you know, the condition of the gun, the condition of the box especially. Because people aren't going to play this thing. You're going to display the box, you know? And so if it looks super nice, then yeah.
Yeah. For anybody who does want to get into Odyssey 1 collecting, like probably nobody here, the rarest game is actually called Percepts. It was sent to people who sent in their registration card. So like Nintendo sent in like the Fun Club news, they gave it the game, and it actually has an overlay and everything. And the reason it's really rare is because nobody sent that in, and the shipping box is really valuable. It's kind of like that Star Wars, like what figures are coming out thing, where everybody just kind of threw out the cardboard. But you know, once again, cardboard is really valuable in game collecting.
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for...
Not purchased at Rasputin, right?
No.
Arash, up here. Do you have a question? Go over to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Say please, Chris.
Please.
Just commanding people across the stage.
Go to the microphone.
Yeah, it was related to Odyssey. That's what I want to ask now. Actually, Odyssey 2, I think.
Yeah, some guys like
That's
that's
much good.
I just kind of
Lord
thought
of the
about
Rings.
this recently, but there was a toy line in the 80s called Power Lords, and
Sure.
apparently there was a game for it on Odyssey 2.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I know, so if you could expand upon that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, so yeah, Power Lords it's actually the rarest game for Odyssey 2 and I think ColecoVision. And I actually haven't played it.
I haven't either, actually.
You haven't played it?
No, I've not.
Okay, but yeah, so it was kind of a licensed title for the Odyssey and Coleco, and it's one of those things where there was kind of a small following for it, and so the print runs were really, really low. And the other thing is like that game came out at the crash. I think it came out in like '83, like late '83, '84, and so nobody bought it. And so yeah, if you can find those, it's definitely. In fact, talking about the fakes. About a year ago, there was a series of fake ColecoVision boxes for Power Lords because all of a sudden, like, one showed up and it went for insane money, like $150. And then another one showed up that looked almost exactly the same, like a month later. So, like, wait a second, and then, yeah, so definitely if you're collecting Power Lords, be careful.
Basically, the lesson is don't collect.
Yeah, you know, don't be us. Just stop that. All right.
I have to really try to stop myself and remind myself, like, you know, Chris, I tell myself, we're on a first name basis, with yourself, you know, you've got to buy these things because you enjoy having them. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to like collect games because like you like having them around, and you know, you actually want them. Like, if it just starts becoming about like money and arbitrage, it's everything's gone to hell.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the value of this game.
You want to tell us
and we will get to you guys. Hang out, and we'll go through him, and then we'll get your questions.
I just had a question. It's actually about Power Lords, so.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Fan
fiction or something?
Was that the game for the Odyssey 2? I think there was a game for Odyssey 2 that came with the whole board game.
There was three. Three of those. Yeah. No. It's like
you've been outgunned.
Yeah. Apparently, there's one that I knew about.
It's like the Wall Street game and Quest for the Ring.
That's the one I know.
And then I forget what the third one is.
Conveniently.
Yeah. No, I think I played Lord of the Rings or something. But
there's Quest of the Rings and Lord of the Rings?
No. I'll it's somewhere in there.
But yes, those games existed.
Yeah. So it's like it was Odyssey games, but it was kind of like the Odyssey 1, where they had like cards and.
They went back to their roots.
Yes. And then they would tape on your screen. It's great. No, but yeah, those are kind of like the Odyssey big box games, and they're super heavy.
They're really cool looking when you find them.
Yeah.
Like the Odyssey, just a big box of crap.
Yeah. Nowadays you get like a bandana or something.
Yeah.
You used to get like cards and chips.
It's like eco packaging and self-flexy.
Yeah.
I want to destroy the environment with my video.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so Chris, what is this?
This is
It's a Mega Drive.
Okay, so first of all, it's a Mega Drive game.
Mega Drive was the
Japanese version of the Sega Genesis. Yep. And it's Sangokushi, which is Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And so it is Romance of the Three Kingdoms something or other, and you know, quite frankly, I don't know where in the lineup it falls.
Okay.
But yes, it's the Koei series of strategy role-playing games.
Now you picked this up where?
I got it as a bundle deal with NBA 97 at Valley Village for $2.
Genesis sports title. That's one of those.
Well, this is the equivalent of a sports title in Japan, I believe.
Yeah. It's basically like crap for both systems.
You just basically got the international crap package.
Intercontinental junk.
It's worth nothing, but
I couldn't make anything out of it, so I was like, this would be rare.
But yeah, the Koei printed tons of these for the Genesis. Actually, just in general, Genesis and Mega Drive, there's almost there's not really any value in collecting a whole lot of it. There's like Musha on Genesis. There's that weird kangaroo.
I mean, there's always going to be the super rare ones for people who are collecting the system, but the system itself is just. I don't think
but
it's
even then, super rare in Genesis terms, it's like what's the rarest Genesis? Like
Tetris.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, for
there's only 5 of those,
right? Yeah, sure. But I mean, as far as like like Sega Genesis releases, like there's like
who knows?
Yeah. I mean, even when you get into super rare, it's like worth like $50 or $100 maybe. But the thing with Genesis, of course, the boxes were plastic, so most people actually save the boxes. And so when you find a bare cartridge, essentially, it pretty much just drives the value down. Yeah, so
cool.
It's cool to look at.
Yeah. And also, the carts are wider, so sometimes you'll see a Genesis with like the cartridge port like milled out, so it can fit the larger Mega Drive.
Yeah, if you really want to try to play that, you can just take your Genesis apart and put it right in there.
Yeah. That was what regional lockouts used to be. It literally just was the plastic was in different shape. Yeah.
I think it.
Cool. Yeah, thanks.
So I think we have some questions, right?
And let's get Grant up here.
Sorry.
While he's coming up, we'll take another question.
Hi, I was wondering, are there any like games or paraphernalia from the past couple of generations that are really valuable just through some like fluke of fate, or for some reason this one little thing was rare for the past generations?
For like the last couple generations?
2-3 generations.
Yeah,
there's some rare Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah, there's a Pokemon box on GameCube. There's from
Which
this.
it was sold like through mail order only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like this Pokemon storage system for GameCube, and it came in a cardboard box. So it had a game sleeve in a cardboard box, so you got that whole thing. Yeah. Metroid Prime Trilogy for Wii. Nintendo made like 8 copies of it in the steelbook case, and then they just didn't make any more. So that's
There's
actually
Game
kind
Boy
of
Advance games that are sort of cult followy, like Ninja 5.0's worth a lot.
Ninja 5.0 for Game Boy Advance. A lot of like box instruction complete Game Boy Advance games. Not a lot of them, but some of them are getting a little high.
It's Mr. Pants is worth a lot.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, common misconception. It's a rare puzzle game called It's Mr. Pants, and there's this very strange misconception that it's like worth a bunch of money because like they didn't make a lot of them. No, you can go on Amazon and buy them for like $10.
Yeah. From this generation, the rarest title is probably NBA Elite because it actually got pulled. So a couple snuck out. You probably saw the YouTube video of the player just standing in the middle. It was really buggy. So EA had actually printed all the discs, but then didn't release the game.
And that would have only PS3 versions?
Yeah, only PS3. Someone claimed to have an Xbox version.
Well, I think a loose Xbox 360 version.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So that was the first one. So basically what happened was, they printed these games and then pulled them and destroyed them, but some guy who just sold loose discs for the 360, who like worked at a manufacturing plant or something, and took the defects, just like listed an NBA Elite along with a bunch of other games.
Right.
Someone bought it.
Yeah, it's like $600 because it's the only one.
Because no one was looking for it.
Right, of course.
All right, so we got 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
That's boogie.
All right. I didn't know that. Is somebody holding up a sign?
Yes, there was. I can see it from here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All right. So here we go. Who has played with these? Yes.
Oh man, everyone played this.
Yeah. This is like before Madden. Actually, this is Madden 13. So.
So what do we got here?
Well, this is an old football game. It's not the original. It's Football 2.
Yeah.
And I've had it since as long as I can remember. There's a date on the back that does say 1978. And it still works. It has the same 9-volt battery in it since who knows how long.
Oh God!
And you get turned by battery acid as they open.
Yeah,
no, it works.
Oh, there we
Because
go.
I fiddle with it every now and then, so it's not.
Oh, that's not that old.
No,
battery.
no. Yeah.
That's modern logo.
It's not like a rail
No, it's not.
or something like crazy cat.
You know, the problem with these football sequels is all they do is just change the players every year.
Yeah.
It's like the
This
same
got
game.
slightly redder than the last year's stuff.
And it does actually work, and I've just had it for a long time. I thought it'd be fun to come bring it.
Oh, yeah, there it goes.
All it has is just a couple little LED blips.
Yeah, so who here has never seen one of these? Is there anybody? Okay, so, wow.
This is a very popular item among us.
Oh,
yeah.
this was huge. This was so huge. Oh, man.
Yeah. Here,
Yeah,
actually, you can still hear everything too. I'll bring it up to the microphone.
Please do.
It's just like commentary. Touchdown.
It just flies over and you just kind of run your little guy across the screen until you run into something.
Oh, put it in the Konami clip. It's really cool what happens.
Yeah, so, I mean, this was like portable gaming, the state-of-the-art of portable gaming in the late 70s. And I mean, I spent hours on a cartridge just playing this game. And you think now, like, what the hell were you thinking? It's really fun.
At one point I had a basketball one as well, but I don't
Yeah,
know what happened to it.
There's a baseball one as well. Now, what you got to be careful is, now, so these are, I mean, you know,
And
they
I
made
know they've been
so
re-released.
many of
Yeah,
these things
yeah.
that, you know, it's not like it's worth $1 bajillion, but they are collectible because, you know, people do remember having them as a kid, people like Steve, and you know, they'll buy these again just to sort of mess around with it. You have to be careful though, because Mattel recently, a few years ago, actually released a lot of remakes of these. So if you're out, you know, if you're out and about, if you're at a tag sale, flea market, yard sale, whatever you call it, where you live, you know, and you see one of these, make sure it doesn't say on it Mattel Classic Football or Mattel Classic Baseball.
There's a date on the back as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look for the date. You know, make sure the date's in the 70s or early 80s, basically, to know that you've got something that's authentic. Because if you see this for like 50 cents to $1, you should totally buy it. You know, and
Yeah, it's not like ridiculously valued or anything, but it's just a fun little piece of
Yeah.
game.
Things like this are really cool pieces of history because they kind of cross over into toy collectors, you know, because it is Mattel, because they're handheld, they're small, they're so emblematic of the era. Like this is something you can get people into who aren't even necessarily like video game collectors.
Now, if you're at a flea market and you see one and this is a new one,
Yeah.
you should grab it, hold it up ahead in front of you, right, and then drop it and then kick.
Onto the drop kick playing this. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, if you're collecting handhelds like this, you'll want one complete in box, never used or whatever. But for nostalgia purposes, and for the folks who raise their hand and never seen one, I'd encourage you to take a look at it. I mean, you're not going to believe that people would spend hours playing this game.
Yeah, if you want to, if a couple people want to come and try playing it, that's fine too.
Yeah, cool. All right,
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Value, really.
Yeah, I mean, $5.
Yeah. They're
What'd
really
you
not
say?
that valuable.
$5.
Really?
Yeah.
You think it's a little bit more?
Yeah, well.
I mean, these were very, very popular and sturdy, so there's a lot of them still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it works perfectly fine now, and it barely shows any sign of wear other than the fact it's just kind of old.
Yeah.
There's actually, I don't know if you guys know, there's a little port on the side here. I don't know if this is like a
AC adapter.
It's for the CD-ROM drive.
Yeah, it's for the HD DVD
It's my
attachment.
football field.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Always be aware with stuff like this. Like, if you find like the AC adapter probably didn't come with the system. It was probably sold separately. So that can be good. And certainly if you go up in your attic and find an old handheld system that's still in the box, especially, it could be anything, but these Nintendo's, Game & Watch, stuff like that, the box will really send the value kind of into the
Especially those Coleco mini arcade ones.
Oh yeah,
those are really valuable.
If you've got one of those Coleco the handheld LCD games that look like little mini arcade cabinets, those things are pretty valued. So anyway, it's 2:30 and that's our time limit. So thank you all very much for taking time out of your PAX Prime. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
All right.